All right, folks. Well, we are here with a legend, and I'm talking about Brandon. And no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, we're here with it, one of the greatest Redskins I've ever got to witness watching, and he's going to talk a little bit of Commanders football and some other things with us. So let's get this thing started. And welcome back to another video here on the Washington Football Maniacs channel. This channel, of course, is dedicated to news and commentary for the Washington Commanders. If you're down with that, please make sure that you have subscribed to this channel. When you do, also make sure you hit that notification bell so you won't miss any other video releases because we try to bring you some great content. I'm Greg Sykes. I am your host, along with my co-host Brandon Scott. And today we got this very special guest with us. I grew up watching this man take the Redskins to Super Bowls, just winning. Um, he was one of the superheroes along with Joe Gibbs and John Riggins, and I loved watching the Redskins play during those times. Of course, he doesn't need any introduction, but we're going to introduce him anyway. Joe Theismann, welcome to the podcast, my man.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Brandon. I appreciate it. And you're right. It's great to be with two legends today. I'm so flattered and honored to have this opportunity to be able to be in your presence today. Thank you so much.
Legends in our own minds, right?
At least you're a legend somewhere.
There you go. That's right. Probably not in places I want to be.
Who cares whose mind it is?
We'll all be out of our minds at some point anyway in our lives.
At some point, it's going to go away. So let's enjoy the moment.
There you go. Right. That is right. That is right. Oh, so Joe, just recapping a little bit about your career starting off in football. You were drafted by the Miami Dolphins. That was, what year was that? That was
1971.
1971. And what happened? Did you actually get to play with them, or because I know you went to the Canadian Football League for a little bit?
Correct. Yeah. I basically 1971, I get drafted by the Miami Dolphins of the National Football League and the Toronto Argonauts of the Canadian Football League. I was a fourth-round pick in the NFL, and I think a first-round pick in the CFL. I flew down to Miami. I was disappointed because, and here's why: not because I had this inflated thoughts of myself as an athlete, but so many people would come up to me from different teams and say, man, if you're around in the second round, we really like you. If you're around in this round, we really like you. And so I sat in Roger Valdesari, our public relations director's office, in the first round of the draft. It wasn't like it is today. It's nowhere. It's so different. It was very private and very really nothing because it hadn't become a television spectacle. So I sat in Roger's office and the first round went by and nobody called. The second round went by. Nobody called. Got to the middle of the third round. I said, Roger, I'm going down to play basketball. I was at our convocation center at the University of Notre Dame. I said, I'm going to play basketball. And I was sort of pissed. I said, if somebody wants me, come and get me. Not too long after that, the Miami Dolphins draft me in the fourth round. They'd given up their first round pick to Baltimore because Coach Shula left there to go to Miami. So I was really the third pick of the Dolphins. And Mr. Robbie, a big Notre Dame guy, Don Shula, loved Notre Dame. So I wind up flying down there. Joe Thomas, their general manager, was having heart surgery. So I wound up negotiating my contract with Mr. Robbie. And you'll love these numbers compared to today's quarterbacks. So I sat down. He said, what do you want? Well, first mistake in negotiations, you quoting the price, me quoting the price. Never, ever quote the price when it comes to negotiations. Let someone else tell you what they think you're worth, and then you have a starting point. Well, I didn't know that because I'm a Notre Dame guy and I think I'm smart enough to do this. Found out I wasn't. So I wind up getting the contract, and they had me paying back money if I didn't show up as a part of the bonus, but the numbers were $35,000, $45,000, and $55,000, and a $35,000 bonus split into 3 years. But the bonus had to be paid back if I didn't show up. And what young people don't understand, if you go back in history, that was the end of the Vietnam War. I didn't know what was going to happen. So I became disillusioned with the process because I didn't have an agent. I didn't have a buffer. And so Leo Cahill, coach of the Toronto Argonauts, called me and he said, we'd like you to fly up here and we want to talk to you. I flew up. I signed my contract in Toronto. It was 50-50 US dollars. I flew back to South Bend and Coach Parsegian calls me on the phone. He says, what have you done? So I signed with the Toronto Argonauts. He says, I know. I just got off the phone with Coach Shula and he's flying up here and he's not happy. Shu flew up, read me the riot act and said, you had a moral obligation to be a Miami Dolphin. I said, well, you had a moral obligation not to screw with my contract. Like I said, I'm very naive to the process. And as it turned out, he didn't like me very much after that for a long period of time. And so that's how I wound up going to Toronto. And then George Allen traded a number 1 pick for me to the Miami Dolphins for me in 1974. But I watched the Dolphins go to Super Bowls while I was in Canada. And everybody said, Joe, do you realize you could have been a part of that team? You could have been a part of the 1972 undefeated Miami Dolphins. I said, well, when I didn't go there, Shu went out and got Earl Morrall. And Earl actually quarterbacked 9 of the games that year of the Dolphins season, 9 games as a backup. I said, I couldn't guarantee I could win every game. So for anybody who's a Dolphin fan, my comment to them is, you're welcome. Because I didn't go, you wound up with an undefeated season. So good for you. And then I wound up, then sat for a few years in Washington, and then things moved forward. When actually Coach Pardee gave me the chance to be the starter. And then Coach Gibbs put together this incredible football team around me and had a chance to be a part of something special.
I tell you, just listening to that, because, you're talking about being able, you had that opportunity to be on those Super Bowl teams with Miami, but how sweet was it? Because, of course, they beat the Redskins in '72. I try not to talk about that, but how sweet was it, though, that about 10 years later, you're playing for the Redskins. You're the star quarterback there. You beat those Miami Dolphins in Super Bowl 17 to get the Redskins' first Super Bowl of their franchise. That had to have been just, with the path that you took to get to where you were at when you finally got with the Redskins, you were finally the starter. That had to have felt like this, this monkey off your back. Such a sweet feeling.
Well, I wasn't vindictive about the whole thing. I made the decisions. It has nothing to do with the Dolphins, but it was interesting that 10 years later, I would have an opportunity to quarterback a football team that beat the Miami Dolphins. And then 2 years after that, a lot of people don't realize I started my broadcasting career really with the Liberty Bowl, like in '81. But in 1984, Rune Orlich came to me and said, we'd like you to broadcast. We'd like you to be a part of the broadcast team for Super Bowl 18. And I'd thought about television. I'd done some shows in Washington. I did WJLA TV and, did the morning shows and things like that. And I thought, hey, this would be interesting. And I said, am I going to be a sideline reporter? What am I going to do? He says, no, you're going to replace O.J. Simpson. So it was Don Meredith, Frank Gifford, and myself who broadcast Super Bowl 19 between the San Francisco 49ers and the Miami Dolphins. So this is the third time Shula has seen me, and things have not gone very well every time I show up. So it was a little bit unnerving for, I think, Don to know that I was going to be around somewhere. But yeah, it was one of those things where I negotiated my first contract without an agent, and I did my last contract with Mr. Cook without an agent. The first one, I should have had one. It would have been much better for me in the long run. The last one, it wouldn't have mattered whether I had an agent or not. Mr. Cook was going to give me what he wanted to give me, and he was extremely fair. Made me the 4th highest paid player in the National Football League at $1 million a year, which is just a little bit below what the guys are getting. And, another new record was, Trevor Lawrence's record, $200 million guaranteed, 275.
I mean,
the numbers are crazy. They're crazy.
It is so crazy. I mean, and the thing is, like, no offense to Trevor Lawrence, because I think that he has the potential to be a big time quarterback in the league. But Brandon, you know it too. Like, we talk about these numbers on the podcast all the time, and just how inflated they're getting, and just the these guys during Joe's time playing. I mean, you know, yes, the cost of living things were a lot less. Money,
Not that
cars
much
and
less,
food.
Greg. Not that much less. I mean, yeah, the cost of living was less, but not 59 million less. Um,
True. Yeah,
Yeah,
true.
yeah,
but
Yeah,
the funny thing was Warren Moon was the highest paid player in the league in '84 at 1.4 million. And I don't begrudge any of these guys to get everything they can get, but it's really indicative of the lack of the quarterback position in the NFL. There aren't any. So if you've got one, you basically are forced to pay market value for whatever that individual is.
yep,
that's right.
And so, good for the guys that are there. But I mean, look at the amount of quarterbacks who were drafted this year, and we're still probably half a dozen short.
yeah,
So,
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
the economics certainly have changed, and it also lets you know how much the NFL is making. And I think that's going to go up exponentially, simply because you've got gaming coming in a lot of different elements. There'll be in stadiums. The NFL gets a piece of all that stuff. So the owners are going to continue to be able to make the money, and the players, looks like hopefully will be able to benefit from it. Except for running backs, the most
Yeah.
underappreciated, underpaid position in all of football. In all of football, could be in all of athletics. To be honest with you, I mean, they're so underpaid for their value to a football team.
Yeah, Brandon. I mean, that's another thing we talked about, the shift in, just back in the 80s and even, the 90s, certainly the
Yeah.
70s and stuff, that, yeah, the running backs were, a lot of times you had to have that star running back
Oh yeah.
if you're going to win football games.
Oh yeah,
But now, you and I had talked about too, it's like, um, even though that it is a quarterback driven league, we found, and maybe Joe, you've seen this too, but we have found that a lot of the teams that wind up winning Super Bowls, at least in my opinion, are the ones who can still run the football.
Absolutely. Well, look at
yeah,
Christian McCaffrey. Even though San Francisco hasn't, completed it completely. I mean, you look at the impact. Look at the impact Saquon Barkley had. Saquon Barkley had such a year that Daniel Jones wound up benefiting from it.
Yeah,
I mean, you look what the Philadelphia Eagles lost their running backs. Look at the difference there. I mean, you can look around the league and see what happens when you have a star running back that isn't available to you. It changes everything that defenses want to do, and it changes everything that offenses want to do. So, but economics has really taken over a large degree of sports, and we don't even want to get started on the portal and the NILs and
oh
collegiate
no,
athletics, and now it's seeping down into high schools, which is just an absolute tragedy. I will say one last thing: somebody, whether it's the NCAA or somebody, has to get involved and say enough is enough. We can't be paying high school athletes that kind of money, whatever it is. I mean, I know they're getting it, but there's got to be some controls, some limits placed on what we're seeing. People moving all over the place. Heck, why would you want to leave college? If you were going to be
yes,
drafted in the sixth or seventh round,
exactly.
what's the sense of leaving college? Apply for as many years as you can, because you'll make more money there than you will at the professional level, if that's your ambition.
That's a good point you brought up, because if you look at Colorado's quarterback, with the NIL deals, you
Yeah.
see a lot of the social media impact as
Yep.
far as college sports. Looking at social media, do you think it's had a positive or a negative influence on NIL and college sports, especially football?
I don't know whether social media has had that kind of impact. I think it's the fact that teams just want to win. And I remember not too long ago when we did everything we could at the college level to keep the alumni at arm's length.
Yeah,
Now if you own a car dealership, or you see basketball teams with these F-150s driving around, or the Ram truck. I mean, they all have trucks, and it's carried over. But now all of a sudden the universities are going to be able to pay the athletes,
yeah,
which is scary, because the rich are going to get richer. What about Division II schools? What about Division III schools?
yeah,
Um, there's going to be a tremendous imbalance in college football. I guess we'll call it um, young people professional football. How's that? There's going to be this imbalance where the bigger names are going to be able to do things because they have a bigger pocketbook, and somehow or other, it just doesn't seem quite right.
No, it really doesn't, and that was kind of my theory about it as well. Is why would they want to go into the NFL? Because they're getting paid millions of dollars.
Yeah.
They're getting these luxury vehicles. I mean, yeah, on one hand, I always try to look at the bright side of things, right? And so on one hand, it's like it's keeping them in college.
Yeah.
But I mean, come on.
Yeah, but Greg, it's keeping them in college. But if you're staying those extra years, what are you studying?
Exactly. That's my point. Yeah.
You're on a graduate program. I mean, you're a graduate assistant. Maybe you're taking some educational things to move you forward. But if you're staying economically for a year or two for what, 3 credits, 4 credits, 6 credits, I don't know. The number gets a little out of hand. But um, I just think that's one thing that really needs serious consideration.
Absolutely.
I agree 100%. 100%. So I'm gonna switch gears real quick. As you know, new owner in Washington,
Yep.
new GM, new coaching staff, a lot of new pieces. Looking at the stadium deal, obviously, there's a chance that they could very well bring the Commanders back into DC. Now,
Right.
looking at a new era in Washington football, how important would it be for the Commanders to be back into DC?
I think that whole area is going to be developed. I was down at the stadium just before they started tearing it down. I did Peyton Manning's show down there, and Larry Brown, Mark Mosley, Jeff Bostic, myself, we had a chance to sort of reminisce a little bit about old RFK. And I didn't realize, I always thought that it wasn't a big enough site from a land standpoint to be able to build a stadium, but obviously there's a lot more land there than I thought there was. There's certainly a possibility. And, what will the federal government do? I think that's federally owned land. So, I mean, how is that going to affect what they might want to do going forward? Obviously, there's 3 choices. There's downtown Maryland, Virginia. Those are the 3 choices. And wherever new ownership decides they want to put it, I hope they put it in a place where they have road access,
Yeah.
where
Yes.
where it makes it easier to get in and out of where you want to go. FedEx is a tough place to get in and out of all the time.
It is. Yeah.
The subway is it's a mile away, where
Oh,
it
yeah.
drops
Yes, sir.
people off, and it shuts down at a certain time in the evening, which makes no sense to me whatsoever. If you've got a stadium and an event going on, why not let the people get home instead of trying to figure out something else? So, but I really have no idea where they're going to put this stadium. I know this lease runs out, I think, in 2025, and so they're going to have to get moving on it because it's going to take at least 2-3 years to build a new stadium.
Mm-hmm.
So I would expect a decision to be made in the not too distant future, just because the old lease is running out, and I'm not sure if they want to go through an extension. I don't know if FedEx Field wants to do it, which will have a new name now, whatever Commander Stadium is. So to me, it's going to be interesting to see where they want to put the stadium from an accessibility standpoint, from a road standpoint, and then what's the capacity going to be? We've seen smaller and smaller stadiums. Our capacity is, I think, 85,000. I don't envision a stadium that big for us, just like there aren't that way now in the National Football League. They're running somewhere in the low 60s to be able to, and maybe it'll bring back the premium of having a ticket, having a chance to go to a game.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you think, because I know people have asked this question before, when they finally build a new stadium and the team moves to the stadium, do you think they will change the name again?
I really don't know. Obviously, there's been conversation, a lot of people talking about this, talking about that. I have no idea whether they will or won't. I'm not sure what new ownership will decide to do. I think we're all sort of in the same situation, even though, I do go to practice. I do get a chance to, I sit with, Josh and Dan. I'm around there a little bit, but I have no earthly idea what they want to do as far as the name goes. Right now, you've got the name, you've got the location of the new stadium, you've got the refurbishing of FedEx Field, you've got the refurbishing of the practice facility. Yeah. There's a whole lot of new things going on when it comes to the Commanders.
And speaking of the Commanders and whole new things, new ownership, a bunch of new players, exciting time to be, um, a brand new, what we consider star quarterback or future star quarterback. Now Jaden is very humble. He's like, man, I'm just a rookie, and I love that. I love that he's taken the humble route. You said you've been to some of the practices and things like that. Can you give us an idea of what you've seen? Do you get the sense that there's something special about this team?
Well, I think it's an interesting scenario because there are going to be so many new faces.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the roster and the people that have gone and the people that have come in, conceivably you're looking at 50% of this football team being new on the field when we kick off, which I think newness is something that's exciting and great. The familiarity with the offense and defensive schemes, how much up to speed will they be? A guy like Bobby Wagner becomes so invaluable to help transition in. Then look at the wide receiving core. Cliff Kingsbury. What kind of offense are we going to run? The thing that I've liked about watching Jaden play is I think he gets the ball out quickly. He has a really nice, smooth release, but he's still a rookie. He hasn't seen what other veterans have seen. He hasn't seen what Marcus Mariota has seen.
Yeah.
Sam Howell's the same way. He hasn't seen it. Jeff's the same way. So Jeff's seen a fair amount, but when you're young, you're constantly learning. And the other thing about being a young quarterback or having a team in transition is the way the preseason is set up with 3 preseason games. Jaden's not going to play. Maybe he'll take a couple of snaps. Maybe they'll let him get the ball out of his hands quickly, and then he'll be off the field. So he's really not going to get tested until Tampa. I mean, live action, fast hitting, long game, going to be hot as can be down there. The conditioning is going to be so important. And so to me, that's why they're talking about taking away a preseason game. How is a coach, how do you evaluate somebody as a coach?
You can't.
In college football, how do you keep somebody if there's somebody he has to compete against? Because right now, what we've done is we've sort of destroyed that term competition at the college level. I think I'm pretty good. I'm going to go someplace else. Why should I compete for a job? Why should I try and get better? That's what scares me about that. But then at the other level, on our professional level, how are you going to get anybody ready? How are you going to evaluate a rookie in shorts and shoulder pads? I don't think so. So I think limiting, as they're talking about going to 18 games and limiting preseason, you're turning the first 2-3 regular season games into just glorified preseason games. That's all they are. That's all they are. Nothing more.
Totally agree.
And that's the end of it. Because you're not sacrificing. You're going to be limited as far as people go. And in training camp, we think the guy's pretty good, but can he hit? Can he tackle? Can he hold on to the ball when somebody hits you? You look at the first 2 or 3 games of the last year or so, a lot of fumbles, a lot of drop passes.
Yeah.
Guys just aren't used to getting hit. So, I don't know how soon that's going to happen. I hope it doesn't happen too quickly. But like I said, for a young guy like Jaden, every snap you get is going to be valuable and important. And every one you get with people around your feet, hands in your face and on your helmet and everything else is going to be just a growing process.
Yeah, we often talk about the physical part of sports, but we don't talk about the mental side. And I've always been the person who believed that wherever the mind goes, the body follows. Jaden, rookie quarterback, a lot put on the shoulder as far as hype. But how can he prepare mentally to help him translate his game from LSU to the NFL?
Well, they have these devices now where you can simulate, the whatever they're called. I don't know the name of them, but you can basically simulate pass rushes. You can simulate routes. It's a great teaching device. We've seen it continually develop. Baseball, you get used to hitting curves and looking at stuff. And so any little pieces of information add value to the educational process. And you're right, Brandon, you want to be able to get as close as you can to simulating what you're going to see, although it isn't exactly the same, but it gets you further ahead than nothing. Instead of having nothing, it gets you a little further ahead, and it works out pretty well that way.
Now, me being the legend that I am, I always, I kind of thought that rookies should almost have like their mini preseason where it's just maybe a couple of games where just the rookies play. But then again, I mean, I also understand the season is getting so long that, I mean, their bodies are just getting worn out halfway through. Um, and as much as us fans want to see more and more and more football, I think after a while, I think it starts to water down the product a little bit. Like, when you played, it was maybe 16 games at the most, but it was a little bit more quality, in
I
my
came in the
opinion.
league when there was 14, Greg.
Yes.
I played when there was 16. But if you were to have something regarding, say some rookie games, you're still running the risk of putting your rookie out there, who right now, when you look at the risk reward from an economic standpoint, makes no sense whatsoever. Because there just aren't enough quarterbacks. Now all of a sudden you're going to put one or two out there that are going to be susceptible to injury, and I promise you, someone will get hurt, and that'll be
Yeah.
the end of it completely. So why even take the risk and the chance of doing it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And there's one other thing I'd like to talk about too, if I can
Yeah.
take a second. Um, Coming up on July 12th through the 14th, there's the American Century Golf Championship in Lake Tahoe every year. This is our 35th year. I've played in 34 of them. Total purse $750,000, and it's raised almost $8 million for charities,
Nice.
expecting crowds of over 50,000 people out there, which is absolutely exciting. But we've added a really neat dimension to it, and that's a fantasy golf outing. Matter of fact, you can log on to accfantasygolf.com, get all this instructions and information. They break the players down into 5 groups. I've been in the middle group. And if you can pick the winner on every day, the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and become the ultimate winner, you win a $10,000 prize to donate to charity of your choice. And then each day is a winner. You get 2 tickets to come to next year's event. Same thing with the grand prize winner, come to next year. So, and you don't have to stay with the same team. You can move people around. So John Smoltz, Tony Romo, Vinny Del Negro, Larry the Cable Guy, Charles Barkley. It just goes on and on and on. Mark Mulder. Um, the list of people that are out there, and this is my 34th year. And what I appreciate so much is the new faces that have come in, like Annika Sorenstam, who's just phenomenal as a person and as a player. Catherine Tappan, who's a personality unto herself, and these are everybody loves golf, and you just get to talk. You talk war stories, you get to learn about people as individuals. It's just an exciting time. But you can, like I say, you can log on to www.accfantasygolf.com. The whole thing's laid out for you, the rules and everything else, and I hope people take the opportunity to try and pick some teams. I have finished in the top 10 before, but I was a little bit younger, so I'll let you.
Hey, you can do it. I got faith in you, man.
Oh, thank you so
I
much.
got faith. And we will make sure that we post that in the description on this video, folks. So please go to the link, check that out. I'm always a sucker for wanting to help out charities, and this is a fantastic way to help out the charity of your choice. Joe, you also have a book out. Tell us a little bit about the book.
Yeah, I wrote a book a couple years ago, actually came out during the pandemic in 21, called How to Be a Champion Every Day. 6 keys, 6 strategies to, how to become a champion every day. I took the world of sports, the world of business, and our own lives, and I married them together. Basically, the foundation of the book is, in those 3 aspects of your life, I think there are things there you might be able to find very useful going forward. And one of the things I did in the book is, which I really enjoyed, it's the last thing I basically wrote, and it's called A Letter to My Younger Self, which is an incredible exercise if you stop and think about it. If you could tell your younger self or give your younger self some advice, what would that be? It is really, like I say, it's a great personal exercise to be able to do it. One of the most enjoyable things I did in the book, I talk about goals and attitudes and customer service and teamwork and motivation and opportunities, and tell stories about, Coach Gibbs and my relationship and the things that I've learned from other people. It's really a compilation of a lot of things that I've had a chance to learn from some incredible people. General Powell, for one, who does a thing for me in there. So anyway, it's called How to Be a Champion Every Day. It's available online, and I did the audio for it too, which was one of the most, if not the most challenging thing I've ever done, because I talk fast, obviously, and now you have to try and not talk fast, but enunciate everything and
Yeah.
get the commas right and the periods right. And I did the initial recording, and then 6 sessions later, I finally finished it.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
I can't imagine, like, writing a book and then having to turn around and
Read it.
actually do the audio for it.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that. I would mess
Nah.
up after the first page.
Well, I
I
wanted it.
would.
I wanted people to know it was me, and I didn't. I never thought it would be that hard. Oh my gosh, I never realized it would be as painstaking as it was. But I guess I just wanted it to be right. So if you buy the book or you buy the audio, that's me. That's not somebody else telling the story. It's me telling the story.
Wow.
That's awesome. That is awesome. And folks, we'll also put a link um, down in the description of this video for the book as well. You want to pick up that book,
Yes.
um, Joe Theismann's book. And Joe, I tell you, I really appreciate you so much coming on and talking with me and Brandon.
Thank you.
Would love to have you back down the
Sure.
road when you have a
Yeah,
free moment.
for sure.
Um, we are just a bunch of long time Washington fans. I mean, I've been a fan
Yeah.
since 1981. I was 6 years old. And I'll just tell this really quick before we leave. My dad was a big Redskins fan. God rest his soul. I wish he was alive to witness this. But he would have the Redskins on TV every Sunday. And and I don't know what it was with me in football, but it just translated into something with me, and I was so attracted to watching you guys play, the colors of the uniforms, the chief on the side of the helmet, your single bar face mask. It was like, I don't know what it was. It was like a bunch of heroes to me. Joe Gibbs, I want to meet Joe Gibbs. I want to talk to him one day. I always considered him almost like a father figure, because he seemed like he was the type of guy that you wanted to respect so much. He just
Right.
oozed that even watching him on TV.
Oh, and you did. I mean, Joe's an incredible man. We communicate quite a bit now as we go forward. One of the true, and I don't use this term very lightly, geniuses of the game. I mean,
Yeah.
when it came to the 2 minute drill, when it came to the red zone, when it came to halftime meetings, he could dissect a team. He could figure out exactly what we needed to do. And it was a great coaching staff, a tremendous group of people. And I was very blessed to be able to have the opportunity to be able to be a part of it. And what you're talking about, Greg, is uh, the fans, I think, felt like we did. There was an enthusiasm, there was an energy, there was an excitement. RFK was alive.
Yeah.
And that's really where we want to get back to. We want the fans feel like there's some place that is a living, breathing animal that is going to eat up anybody that wants to come in there that's not a friend. And
Yeah.
and that's really what it was. I mean, it was a hostile place to play. It wasn't that big, 55,000.
Yeah.
But boy, oh boy, Drew Pearson's one of my dearest friends, the Hall of Famer with the Cowboys. And Drew and I would talk, and he'd say, "Man, of all the places we go, we don't like coming here." And that's what you want to hear.
Yeah.
You
Yes,
want to
sir.
hear people say, I didn't want to go there. Made it so tough on us. And those were our fans. And there's a lot of them still out there. And now we want to get them back. We want to give them something to cheer. You can all do all the cosmetic things you want to a stadium. But unless you can put a winning product on the field, people are just reluctant to go, well, I'm not going to take my Sunday afternoon to go and do that. So hopefully those days are coming back.
I think so. I got faith in that. I think Josh Harris was the right guy.
Absolutely.
Him and his group, they were right group of ownership to put this franchise back in the right direction. We're already seeing guys like Darrell Green kind of coming back to the fold, and just the honor that he has received. That his number's going to get retired.
Yep.
Long overdue, in my opinion. So yeah, me and Brandon. We always end these videos with, we are so excited and looking forward to the near future.
Yes,
even
sir.
if the team only wins 7 games this year, I believe that every single game is going to be a hard fought game. It's going to be, you're going to see a different sense of urgency for these players, and I think it's going to be very attractive for other players who want to come to play for the Washington Commanders.
I think so too. I think so too, guys. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, sir. So, folks, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, please give it a like, share it with your friends. And with that said, we will see you in the next one. Take care, everybody.